Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. Today's video, I come across for some reason I keep coming across this fun in bunches, I guess. I just did the video on the follow up on New Mexico and found all this stuff that was going on in New Mexico. Just really just chasing one story. I wasn't actually trying to find all this about New Mexico. Well, it just happened again, this time not in New Mexico. So I've got another situation here in Oklahoma that I've come across and really was trying to illustrate a few things and come to find out there's a second incident. So, um, one of the things I find interesting about my addiction to alcohol, and it got me every time. And now, if I look back on it retrospectively, and if I'm honest with myself, people knew how heavy I was drinking a lot longer than I'm willing to admit. I embarrassed myself probably more than I might be able to tolerate to know. Like if I actually had a video in my head of all the times that I thought I was being slick and people knew I was drunk or drinking heavy and tolerated it or just put up with it or was in a quandary about whether to call the police or whatever else, I probably would have a hard time facing a lot in a day. So I think it's part of a blessing in my recovery is I don't recall all those situations. But for those of you that are in kind of an active situation and you might not consider yourself an alcoholic, most days you feel pretty good. A couple things I'm going to share with you today. One thing I'll start off with a baseline is that if you're at 0.06, most days you feel normal. You're not in withdrawal yet. So 0.06 blood alcohol level. In New York State, I'm not sure if it's this way across the country, but in New York State at 0.05 is intoxicated or is impaired. 0.08 is intoxicated from a vehicle operation standpoint. But at 0.05 is certainly above a legal limit. So if you're a heavy alcoholic and you drink heavy at night, you probably still have it in your system during the day, even though you feel like you're okay, and B, you're likely above the legal limit. So I'm saying that because I think that we get so good at drinking and we get so good at the dance that people from a periphery, if they weren't real close to us, probably don't notice it. But I would say that those who are around you every single day absolutely do notice it, and for whatever reason, many times give you a pass. Today's video, I got a couple stories I want to share with you. They are troubling. I'm not minimizing at all what's going on here, but I do think it characterizes how addiction looks and how it can be allowed for so long. And I'll backtrack for a minute. When I was in high school, just before I switched schools to the high school in our area, there was an English teacher there that was known forever. And I mean, everybody knew he had booze in his bottom drawer of his right part of his desk. And that was there all day long. We knew it was there. And we knew he was taking pulls on it all day long. Now, was he heavily intoxicated during the day? I don't know. Maybe. He had big bags under his eyes and laughed heavy and labored, and it's entirely possible that he was. And there was times when he was just unreasonable and mean, and some of his assignments were at the time pretty risque. So looking back as an alcoholic that has to reflect on my addiction, I can see a lot of his behaviors manifest themselves right there before us every single day as an 11th grade English teacher. So that was just known. When I was incarcerated the last time, there was a corrections officer in there that we were always suspicious and joked about seeing her come in with her huge cooler, and we always speculated about what was in that cooler because many of us are addicts, and we saw the fluctuation, we saw how things went, we saw how the conversations and the stories all went, and sure enough, about 3 or 4 years after I got out, I got contacted. I was actually working in a restaurant, so that had been about 2 years after I got out. I was working in a restaurant, and she came in as a patron of the restaurant. And when I was in the back side, came over and pulled me aside and confessed that she had a serious problem with addiction. She was only working part-time in the jail at that point, had some serious medical problems, and was looking for some help. So, at the time, she probably thought she was being slick, but man, all of us addicts had her whole thing figured out. We knew, and I mean, there was really no point in us pointing it out because it wasn't going to do anything but get us some, more hassle than we really wanted to deal with at that point. And it didn't have any currency to it, so we just kind of let it go. But I've also watched a recent video where there was a law enforcement officer on duty, and I may do this, I may share it. I'm not sure if I will or not. It's probably just belaboring the point, but this gentleman is on duty. And again, the same story. When was the last time you drank? Oh, about 6, 7 o'clock last night. How many drinks you have? A couple, or sometimes they say one. And here this gentleman blew a 299, freaking 299 in uniform in a cop car on duty at 8:30 in the morning. So it's a lot more common than we think. And function, they call functional alcoholics are generally walking around well above the legal limit. I give all that backstory because we are now finding ourselves in Oklahoma. As I said at the beginning, I started with one story and it's turned into two just by circumstance, because when I didn't have time to get this video up, and the first story is now a couple weeks old. And by the time I started to figure out how I was going to position this with you guys, as I'm looking for that video, I found another one from an Oklahoma elementary school 2 days ago. So we've got two situations. I'm going to share with you the first one first. And the first one is the most current one. That's the one that's most recent. And this is a situation where a elementary school teacher came into the school, and this is at 8:30 in the morning. 8:30 in the morning. And so I will share that with you now and just give you a sense of how this went. Now, I'm not going to share the whole video with you. I'm just going to give you kind of an idea of what's going on here. And I'll make some comments as we go.
This is a portable breathalyzer machine. It reads a little lower than what the actual intoxicator, which we utilize at the police department, it reads lower. This came up a 0.066.
I have not had any, that's what I'm saying. I haven't had.
So here you have a elementary school teacher at 8:30 in the morning. 8:30 in the morning. Now I'm not giving these individuals. I'm not standing on some lofty perch and saying you are, whatever. I am them. So I watch this stuff and I honestly, I'm not laughing out of humor. I'm just like, the crap that I used to pull and think I was okay, and so many passes people gave me, and here's a circumstance I'm sure I would have found myself in this situation at times if I was a teacher. So here she is, alleging that she had drank the night before, but at 8:30 in the morning, she's got a 0.066, which is above the legal limit, so she's impaired, and she drove to work. And what they're saying is based on their devices they use in the field, which is kind of concerning to me that they're that far off. But for them to do a field sobriety test and then do this breathalyzer, a 0.066, he's saying back in booking would be a 1.2 or a 0.12, which is concerning that they're that far off on the calibration. They might want to look at new devices for whatever they got going on in Oklahoma. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just found it interesting that here this person is at work. And again, back to what I was saying, and the law enforcement officer even says this, at 0.06, you probably do feel normal. And she says she feels normal and hadn't had anything to drink that day. But I've noted she's being respectful, at least with law enforcement, even though she's not being honest.
Had anything today.
Okay, well, again, I don't know your drinking habits. Okay, I kind of explained that to you before I put you on the machine. Okay, if somebody drinks a lot, and if they run with a normal BAC of, say, about a 0.06 or 0.
So he's going to explain what I was just talking about.
0.08, that's what feels normal to them. Okay? When
He's
they
saying
start to get below
0.08.
that, that's when the onset of withdrawals kick in. You just start getting the shakes and not feeling so good, and then you drink.
And let me tell you something. Once that withdrawal sits in, if you're an alcoholic or a heavy drinker, once withdrawal sits in, if you really got a serious problem, you're in trouble. I mean, it's really hard to snap back out of it. It's not like you go have a drink and have everything settle in. It just doesn't. It'll take a while, and you'll be sick for a while, shaky. I've had withdrawals so bad that when I was trying to satisfy it with a drink, I couldn't match the coordination with the glass to my face because my arms were so weak, and it was just, it's terrible, absolutely horrible, killing yourself experience.
Sure.
That BAC will still be up here. Okay, from a legal standpoint, you're still intoxicated.
So here's the situation. The administrator, the guy in the blue shirt, he knew immediately something was going on. Now, and prior to this, I'm not going to share the whole video, but prior to this, they were in a conference. So the law enforcement officer, the administrator, and another school official are in an office. I'm presuming the administrator's office or the principal, I think, is who this is. And they're discussing how they want to treat this person with dignity, which I honestly have a lot of respect for him for doing this. But it also shows me that he was not fully aware of her circumstance, and when they were aware of it, and they didn't give it a pass. 8:30 in the morning, she got pulled in, and she's getting charged in this video. And he said he was giving her the option of dignity. She was either going to be terminated and walked out in handcuffs in front of everybody, or she could submit a resignation immediately and be, notified and publicly she was just had an abrupt resignation. So I felt like at the very least he gave her a sense to maintain her dignity as a person. This officer on the right here, in a conversation just prior to this, is talking about how he likes to treat people as people and understanding everybody goes through different stages in life, which is true. I can tell you in my own history, I've had relatively good experience with law enforcement, except for one. I don't know if I've called him out on here, but there was a cop that thought my ex was really attractive and wanted to try to show me up while he was in uniform. And I that was the only one that I really wasn't having it. The rest of them I complied pretty good with because they were decent. But for the most part, I think these guys handle things pretty remarkably given the situation they're in. So this first case is really kind of not that big of drama around it, but it's still troubling. This individual at 8:30 in the morning is intoxicated. Now I'll skip ahead for you guys in this and let you know that she is subsequently arrested. She resigns from her position on the spot because she actually used to work in child welfare, which I thought was kind of interesting. Before she was a teacher, she was in child welfare. So she has she's been involved in these situations from another perspective and understands how dangerous it is to expose kids to that as a teacher. But again, alcohol is not a thinking. Alcoholism or addiction is not a thinking activity. We're not consciously. I think it sounds like it's a past, but it's not. We're not always consciously making choices to be harmful to other people. It's just at some point the craving is something beyond anything I can even describe to you if you haven't experienced it. And honestly, thank God that you haven't gone through that, because it never really leaves you. I mean, cravings do, but it's always a danger. So the second one is also an Oklahoma elementary school teacher. Now, what I couldn't find is if it was the same school. I don't think it is. It's different administrator, everything else. I don't even think it's in the same county. But I just thought it was weird that we've got another Oklahoma teacher, just like the last video. I had two situations in New Mexico. So, by the way, while I'm making this video, I heard word of mouth, and I haven't investigated it yet, but it sounds like there's a third baby death in New Mexico. So I don't know what's going on there, and I'm not sure if it was Artesia Hospital. Maybe I'll follow up on that. I'm not certain yet. So anyway, back to the subject of this video. Teacher number 2, which is actually teacher number 1, the one I was initially going to do the video about, I will post her stuff. Now, you're going to see a remarkably different situation here. And I'm going to speculate on this. And the reason I'm going to speculate on this is because I believe this is a similar situation to what we found ourselves in with the Artesia Hospital situation in New Mexico. And what I mean by that is I believe that there's some covering of one's arse, as the Scots say. They don't use the of one's part, but there's clearly some being careful. And I'm going to point out some stuff here that I think is going to cause some BS on this, so that you guys will probably be aligned with me on this one. But anyway, you'll notice a dramatically different situation between the first one and this one. So up to this point in this video, and so I've got it up here for you to take a look at. Up to this point in the video, this individual, this teacher, has been crying a sob story. At first, she tried to lie she hadn't been drinking. Now, this law enforcement officer has been doing this little circle with her because she's clearly intoxicated, and she's doing what a lot of alcoholics and a lot of people that are just drinking heavy do. They go through the circle. They're trying to avoid it, trying to manipulate the situation. A lot of drama, a lot of pauses, no commitment. So he's given her the option to not be arrested. He's given her the option. Do you have somebody that you can call and come pick you up? He's actually literally not trying to arrest her in the school at this point, up to the point. He's just asking for some cooperation on it, because it's not first thing in the morning. Now, that's the first red flag I have with this administration and the overall situation. I'll summarize my feelings on that in the end. But this is in the afternoon. So this woman has been in school all day long. And at the end of the school, I'm suspicious that somebody probably complained, or a child's parent noticed. And I don't know that for sure, but somebody changed what they know to be normal. And I'll explain all that in a second. So she finds herself here, heavily intoxicated, as you'll see, trying to manipulate the situation and avoiding a problem. She is... they have a cup that will be presented with evidence of alcohol has been in it. She alleges it's from another day and tries to tamper that evidence while she thinks the officer's not looking, and tries to wipe the cup out. So she's clearly trying to manipulate the whole thing. And this cop's had it. And so I'll share a little bit with it, and then I'm going to share some thoughts I have on this one as well. So this is the first teacher from a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that I initially started on this little voyage with you guys on.
You don't have time to hear all of us.
So here she's starting to talk about, you don't have time to hear all about all my problems. He's trying to empathize with her and relate to her in some ways, but at this point he's at a point where he's just done with it all. He being the cop.
How long have you been in teaching?
I've worked with kids my whole life.
Is this your first year to actually be a teacher?
No, I taught at Westwood and I taught at Head Start. I'm so sorry. I let everybody down. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sure you heard that.
Is it just me, or when they're doing these body cam videos, everything's so much more crunchy? I don't know what that's all about. Just a sidebar. It's just so crunchy. But what's interesting is he's just sitting there and she's starting to pour her heart out, and he's got, you know, he's got another tube in there ready to go with the I think it's called Alka-Seltzer, or the breathalyzer.
I hear it all the time. Some people actually mean it though. Some people don't.
So
Okay, no more games, right? Yeah. Other than that.
So she's telling everybody there, no more games. So now see how Wyatt Earp, this guy comes in. He's the administrator or the principal. He's obviously clearly upset. And he's been upset all the way through. And he's saying, no more games. How about that? And he pulls this cup out of her bag or off her desk or something. And it's got alcohol smell in it. So he's clearly had it here. But we'll get into that even more, because you notice how his behavior here is very aggressive towards her in front of the law enforcement officer. Like he's got a zero tolerance policy, just like that charge nurse was at Artesia Hospital, only to be really complicit in this young woman going and delivering her baby in a bathroom. I'll share some speculation that based on observations at the end with him.
My juice.
Gonna try again? That there is wine.
I thought that was from yesterday.
Did you drink it up here yesterday?
Well, I brought it from home. I was sitting there to that this morning.
So she's thought you can see she's dancing away from it. Clearly she had a cup full of alcohol in the school, and this guy knew to start looking at cups in her area. I mean, I guess it's arguable that he would have thought that anyway, based on how intoxicated she appears to be. Now, one more thing. When this whole thing started, they first brought her in the room and he did the whole I need to help me understand conversation, you know, that you were different in the morning than you are now. And I've noticed a dramatic difference in you through the day. So that's how this whole thing started, is that he's alleging that he noticed a difference in her through the day, but it tells me that he was watching her for some reason.
Did you get my phone?
This in here. I'm whatever you want.
Well, I mean,
Is my phone in here?
We turned your roofing nightmares
So the
into
phone
dreams
and the
come
car
true.
keys have been a little bit of a dramatic thing too, trying to find her phone. And
I didn't go through
she's
your
got
back.
keys.
That's
You
your, you said
can.
first. I know, but my thing is,
yeah,
that's all I need.
yeah.
Did you get my phone?
You said your phone was in the purse.
Well, I thought it was on the desk, but it's okay.
Are you gonna call someone?
Well, I don't. I used to have everybody's numbers, but
So here she is. She's trying to be evasive because she doesn't want to call anybody, because there's still this, like, here's what I relate it to. As alcoholics, and this one, it's actually really uncomfortable for me to watch this, I'll be honest with you, because I think I found myself in this situation probably more than I care to admit. But so she doesn't want to let other people know. She's still in the back of her head, thinks that she's going to survive this and is still in the survival mode. She's done. I mean, she's just done. When this conversation started, she was done. But we still, the lies we tell ourselves perpetuate themselves right in the midst of our total collapse, and we still keep lying to ourselves as addicts. I don't understand it now for anything, but I know I was in that situation. So not as a teacher getting fired, but having been arrested multiple times drinking, I know I was in these situations. And so, especially as intoxicated I was several times. So we get to this place where she's still trying to hold out so that nobody, keep it secret, to keep it real secret so nobody knows, but they all know. And to the point that she's saying she doesn't have anybody, she doesn't have all their numbers because she's being evasive, not letting other people know that she's getting terminated from her job and they need to come pick her up at work. Now, this law enforcement officer and the administrator have given her, at this point, this video is 21 minutes into it, roughly. And in that 21 minutes, the entire time, they've been giving her plenty of opportunity to get somebody in there to pick her up. And it's escalated to this point where she still is being evasive and a real pain in the rear end, honestly.
You gonna get your phone and call someone?
Well,
Is it not in there?
I thought it was on the desk.
Even now, she's dragging her feet.
It's on the desk.
Being truthful goes a long ways, and you haven't done it yet. I have half a mind to arrest you just because you lied to me.
Okay, what do I need to do to make everything right?
I just wanted honesty. That's all I wanted.
I drank out of that yesterday. I didn't drink out of it today.
I don't believe you.
I drank out of that coming to work yesterday.
Well, where's the cup that you drank out of today? Is it in your classroom too?
I don't think so. Honestly, I thought I was doing a good job today. I don't know.
Thought I was doing a good job today. So she clearly knows she's got a drinking problem and has had a drinking problem. So this is going to, and I'm sorry this video is taking a little longer, but there's more meat to it than I want to make sure you guys got to see some of this.
I don't know.
So he's texting, obviously, his sergeant. Try to jump out here. I don't want to go too far ahead. Yeah, I think we're
Just hang out there.
Okay, baby.
Go ahead.
So they're at a point right now. So all the nonsense is done, and this is going to be an arrest.
Please. I'll call somebody. I have somebody right here in town that will come get me.
Too late.
Please.
What's your date of birth, Kimberly?
Please.
So now I'm gonna end that there. But so the please stuff. All right. So I'm gonna get to some other points in this. So she's been about 22 minutes into the interview. All of a sudden he says, enough, you're under arrest, I'm done. He's clearly not going to change his mind on it. He's had it with the whole thing, and I don't blame him. Honestly, that's one of the areas where I do respect what law enforcement has to deal with every day. I'd probably catch a charge just being a cop based on the nonsense you have to deal with, even though I was that person that he's now dealing with. Couple of things I want to note. In the clip I showed you, it didn't show what her actual blood alcohol content was. First, her blood alcohol content, based on that breathalyzer that she took, was 0.24. 0.24. That's massive, absolutely massive. It's basically twice, 2.5 times what the other girl was, I believe, or something like that. Offhand, I can't remember where we were with the other one. But so it's 0.24, which is, it's huge. That's a huge number for somebody to be even at home drinking, and she's in school with this drinking with kids. I find nothing about that okay. Not a thing about it okay. And so when I point out the other parts of these things, I want to make clear, when I'm pointing out the bigger picture where other people do know what's going on and they're trying to save their ass at the end, I'm just pointing out that there's more to the story than just this one individual that's being a putz and doing what there's no reason why she should be in a school that drunk at all teaching kids, but nonetheless at a 0.24. She drove herself there drunk, even if it's the end of the day. There's no doubt. She even admitted the day before she had that cup full of alcohol on the way into school. So for somebody that's drinking that much, she's got a very serious problem. And for her to stop drinking, she's probably going into very serious withdrawals. So that's a medical emergency for her with alcohol. Two things can kill you in withdrawal: benzodiazepines, which is like a Xanax, and alcohol when you go through withdrawal because of the seizures and other things that can happen that can shut you down. Everything else makes you feel like you want to die, but the withdrawal, those two can kill you. So she was in danger by going through withdrawal, but she's still going into school and not letting anybody know what's going on. She still thinks she's slick. Her addiction clearly is out of control. I don't need to do an alcohol evaluation on somebody like that to say you're an alcoholic and you need some help desperately. And I think we all could agree. The law enforcement officer is frustrated, obviously, because he's dealing with a highly intoxicated person. And but here's the thing: the administration knew, and the reason I think they knew, this is an opinion, so I don't want to get lawsuits on me or anything like that, but I have an opinion on this that they knew. I can't imagine a scenario where you would work around somebody every single day to the point that you would notice a behavior change from somebody first thing in the morning to the end. This woman did not become a 0.24 in the afternoon in elementary school alcoholic overnight. This has been a perpetual behavior they've noticed over a period of time. I promise you they knew that she had a drinking problem. I promise you they knew she had a drinking problem. There's no way, if not, he was negligent in his duties for many other reasons, to not notice that you have a teacher that can't function. And she said, I thought I was doing pretty good today. So if 0.24 is doing pretty good, how bad has she been every other single day they've let her in the building? So notice the body language when he came in. He's all stand up and slam the cup down. How about this? Like he's finding new stuff that he didn't know about and just discovering it. It's protecting himself. It's the very same thing that charge nurse did in Artesia General Hospital. They get bold with the cop like they're one of the law enforcement involved here and they're on the good guy's side, but in fact, they've probably been involved at some point. Now, I'm not saying that he's drinking with her or supplying her alcohol or anything else, but I'm telling you, they must have turned a blind eye for it to get this serious. They've known. And somebody, or maybe her level of intoxication is starting to get to a point so rapidly that they had to do something about it, and this is what they had to do on this day. You know, we can't, as alcoholics, we like to sit around like little kids, and we think that if we go plug our ears and cover our eyes, you know, it's just, we're just silently in this little room and nobody sees us because we just became invisible, when in fact, especially as far as that's gotten with the second teacher, and it had gotten from my life, there's no hiding it. I mean, people just know, especially those that are around you all the time, they know. And if you're working in an elementary school, they knew. There's no way they didn't know. And you just, it's not like, and the fact is it was all day. So the other administrator or principal noticed her at barely above impairment, noticed it first thing in the morning. The other individual, his words were, I've noticed that you've been changing throughout the day, or I've noticed that there was something wrong throughout the day. So his level set up front, what he expected from her got worse through the day, but it didn't say that he didn't expect that she was going to be intoxicated in the morning, as always. I don't believe that they didn't know. So what is the point of sharing these types of videos? Well, I'll tell you, for all of us alcoholics, and if you're in a situation where you're struggling with addiction right now, or you're struggling with drinking too much, you may not identify that you're an alcoholic. I know a lot of people that drink at that level that don't think they're alcoholics and they don't have a problem. They just choose to drink and they can stop anytime. That is the number one lie you're telling yourself. If you're an addict, you're an addict, and it calls you and you need help to get out of it. And there's a transitional period that needs medical attention. If you're an alcoholic, you need the medical attention. You cannot do it on your own. Now, I made the mistake on at least 4 different occasions without medical assistance. I went through very serious withdrawals, and that was an absolutely horrible decision to make. I could have killed myself doing that, but I just didn't want to be found. So I fought through it, knowing what I had to fight through, and I had a very predictable series of withdrawals. I'd have 2 days of absolute hell, high blood pressure, crapping my brains out, feeling like I wanted to throw up, phlegmy, all this nonsense for 2 horrible days, hallucinations, audio hallucinations and visual hallucinations. I'd have it every single time. And then on day 3, things would start to calm down. Day 4, I'd be exhausted. Day 5, felt like I could take on the world. And I got through that cycle so many times that I felt like I could do it on my own. If you're struggling with addiction, get help. Get medical attention first. Relative to treatment and what your choice is on treatment, I don't steer people to treatment. I just know that you can't do it alone. I tried to do it alone. You hear this teacher, and she's trying to hide. The first teacher, trying to hide. The second one, in a far more grave situation, trying to hide. Won't even call anybody else to let them know what she's up against because she's so intoxicated. And they've probably all been pleading with her to get it together. She's a long way gone and is going to need help. So if you find yourself in that grave of a situation, you definitely need help. But if you find yourself in the first teacher situation where it was just a little over, take that as a red blaring sign, horns, flags, everything. Time to stop. You just lost your job over this. It can get worse. That's not the end of it. If alcohol took your job because you were found to be drinking on the job, even if it's a low level, because she was making the mistake of emphasizing it's not that it was I forget how she said it. There was some way they were phrasing its legality. So it's illegal to drive, but there was some way they were trying to say that it wasn't a criminal charge at a certain level. She kept trying to say, so it's not a criminal charge. So she was trying to even justify the severity of it. Period. This is it. If you're in a room and your employer or anybody else is having a conversation with you about the amount of drinking that you're having, it's causing a conversation, you need to stop. You need to quit, and you need to get help right now. Don't justify it, because I'm telling you, if you are an alcoholic, you will justify it. You will justify it. You'll find a way to make it not that bad, or you'll find enough sorries to kick the can so you can keep doing it another day. And as I've told it you guys on the show before, any addiction doesn't stop. It'll wait. It'll hunt you. It'll find you. It just will. And alcohol in particular, because that's my substance of choice, I can tell you that one causes cravings that are almost almost unable to stop with one. So we have to really be diligent, make sure that we've got programs around us and people around us, and fortify yourself. Absolutely fortify yourself. These are two examples of how alcohol, I think, clearly altered their lives, and in some cases, it could be they're based on whatever happened in their personal lives afterwards, could really have been a total collapse. Their risk, the high risk they took to go to work, knowing full well that they've been drinking, led to this collapse, and it was avoidable. When they went to work, they've been probably doing this multiple times and didn't expect to run this problem that day, but they did. And the worst part about it is they were in front of a bunch of kids. So, yeah. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope this video was useful for you, informative. You know, as one alcoholic to possibly another alcoholic out there, I'm a little further down the journey than you might be right now. I'm asking you to get the support you need. If you find yourself in a circumstance where something just blew up in your life, get your foot off the gas with the booze. Get off the gas, get some help, and start course correcting now, because trust me, there's just no end. It just keeps getting. I can tell you, alcoholics have a unique ability that when we find rock bottom, we always find a bigger pickaxe. We can keep digging. There's just no bottom to it. So if you're out there and you're struggling, please get help. Shoot me a message, and if you can't find a resource, I'm sure I can find some resource in your area to help support you. Guys, I appreciate your support of the show. I had a great comment on from an older video, but it showed up today. Somebody had commented about enjoying the channel and some of the stuff that's here. So thank you for that, Greg, and thank you for others that make these comments. Just a nice shot in the arm every now and then. So thanks so much. But guys, if you are enjoying the content, please share with somebody you love that might be needing some help, and hopefully at least one will plant a seed of hope in their life, or a seed of options in their life. Between now and the next time we talk, please stay out of trouble.